All right, today we're going to be looking at functions, and let me zoom in a little bit. So the objective here, we're going to be trying to identify relations, domains, and ranges. And so you have some examples and pictures that they show you here, but down here they begin to describe what relation and everything is. So a relation is just a set of ordered pairs. Okay, so you got two little tables here. You can see a relation even on a graph. The way that you make a line is you have ordered pairs and then you just draw a line connecting them all. So a line is a relation. You can just see a scatter plot. So all of these are relations. The x coordinate, okay, so all the x values that will make up the domain. So when you're looking at a graph, you're going to look left to right. You're just tracing the x-axis. You're seeing how far this blue line goes to the left, and you mark it based on how the number that it reaches on the x-axis, left and right. The fact that it has an arrowhead means it continues going, so we would use like negative infinity to denote a solid line. When we have a scatter plot, so just dots, we wouldn't use negative infinity, we would just use that value. So the x-axis is marked by years, so the smallest value in the domain would be 2016, which you can see here, and then the largest would be 2020. So each of these graphs right here associate with the ordered pairs below. So there's multiple ways to write them, and you also have equations. So you have an equation for each of those when given. Not so much with a scatter plot. But you can have an equation, you can have a graph, you can have a table of points. All of them are relations. And then when we talk about domain, the domain is referring to the x element only. Okay. The range is referring to the y coordinate. And you can see that in the table as well. We'll talk a little bit more about how to identify that as we go along. So when we want to identify a function, here's the definition for a function. So a function is a set of ordered pairs, so it's a relation, okay, a set of ordered pairs that assigns each x value to exactly 1. So basically, the x value cannot repeat. So when I look at a set of ordered pairs, I want to make sure that none of the x values repeat and that each of those x values are matched with exactly one y value. So down here, look at the x values, -1, 2, 7, 8. This will be a function. Look at the x values, 0, 1, 0, 7. Okay, so I said 0 twice. Notice that the number 0 is paired with -2 and the number 0 is paired with 3. So we have an x value that's paired with more than one y value. That's what's going on, so this one would not be a function. Which I'll make a note of this a little bit later on to help you identify that. So that's how you identify a function, and you'll have several examples which we will do in my math lab. You also have the vertical line test. This is pretty much the same thing. The x value cannot repeat. So what we do is we do a graph and we draw vertical lines anywhere on the graph, and if it intersects a graph more than once, the graph is not a function. So with a scatter plot, if I was to draw a line through this blue dot, it would only cross one dot. If I drew a line through 3, it would cross 2 dots. Notice this is the same thing as the definition of a function. So I have an ordered pair. I have the ordered pair 3, 2, x value being 3, y value being 2, and then I have the ordered pair 3, -3. So that x value of 3 is being repeated with 2 different points. So that's the same definition, just a different way of viewing it when we have a graph. And so you'll do some graphs, try to see if they're functions. This one would not be a function. Okay, all of these would be functions no matter where you drew a vertical line. And then this vertical line itself is not a function because there are multiple points on this line and it's hitting all of them. It's hitting more than one point. So D, these two would not be a functions. A and B are functions. Okay, so just some more examples. They're going through domain and range. All right, so then we get to this and we start talking about function notation. So using function notation, we have been used to seeing y equals as an equation. Well, now we're going to call it a function. And instead of using y, you're going to replace y with a different notation. It's going to be f of x. Okay, so same equation. They're just changing from y equals 2x plus 1. We're going to write f of x equals 2x plus 1. This f of x still stands for y. Okay, and this is called function notation. Now, this notation right here, if you compare this to this, what you notice is that the x value has been replaced with the 1. So that's what this means. They want you to replace x with the 1. So we're going to plug in a 1. So once you get your x value, you plug it in, and then you figure out the y value. So right here, they're showing you plug in a 1 for x, and then you solve it. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 2 plus 1 is 3. So when x is 1, you get a y value of 3. That's what you get when you solve it. So this corresponds to an ordered pair. When x is 1, f of x is 3, or the y value is 3, and so you get the ordered pair 1, 3. So we'll be using function notation to get you to plug in x values, and then once you plug in those x values, you get a y value, and then that y value will give you the ordered pair. And I think that will probably be the majority of what we're looking at in this section. And then we will jump over to My Math Lab and just practice. So you got several graphs. We'll be looking at function notation. So let me go all the way back to the beginning and just kind of highlight everything again. Going back one too much. Okay, so we're doing relations, domains, and range. So you got some graphs, you got equations, you got order pairs. So everything is a relation. However, a function is a special type of relation that gives each x value one y value, meaning the x value cannot be repeated. It cannot be matched with two different y values. In B, we saw the x value repeating. We also talked about the vertical line test. Okay, it's the same thing. X value cannot repeat. So they're showing you that image right here. If you have two dots in a row and you draw a vertical line and it hits two dots, that's the same thing as having two x values associated with two different y values. So x cannot repeat, vertical line test, they are in agreement. This would not be a function. Then you can see some graphic examples of those. And then we get all the way toward the end using function notation. I kind of skipped over independent, dependent, but those are just other names for the x variable, independent, and the y variable is dependent. So other than plugging in an x value, you get a y value, and then you associate that with an order pair. So with that, let's go ahead and jump over to My Math Lab and start working some problems.